everybody. Welcome to the Canine Connection podcast. Actually, today, Lori is going to do the introduction to this episode. Hey, everybody. Today, we have a really awesome guest interview with Danette Chorney. She's agreed to come on and talk to us and talk to all you guys. She is an AKC rally obedience judge. She is a competitor in rally, a competitor in obedience, a competitor in CDSP obedience, and AKC obedience, along with a whole string of other sports this woman does. We are really, really fortunate to have her on today, and I'm going to hand it over to her. She's going to go ahead and start by just telling you guys a little bit about herself, how long she's been a judge, a competitor, who her dogs are, and what sport she's currently participating in now. Welcome, Danette. And if
Thank
there's
you, Lori.
anything that she wants to share about her life outside of dogs, because I know
That's
hard
right.
to believe there is a world outside of dogs, but
That is
Crazy
true.
talk. All right. Well, thank you both for having me join you today. And I've been very much enjoying all of your podcast episodes, so I'm very honored
Thank you.
and happy to join you. So this has been really cool. So I started pretty late in life with my whole dog journey. I didn't grow up with dogs as a kid. You know, we had cats and we had, gerbils and things like that. But I didn't have a dog until very, well into my adult life. And I got, a dog. I was married at the time to someone who had had dogs growing up and was very dog savvy. And it just kind of clicked with me. And my first dog was a Labrador Retriever. And I just really enjoyed watching him learn and teaching him stuff, teaching him how to do things that I didn't even know dogs could do. Um, I was fortunate early on. I live in New England. I lived in Massachusetts at the time. And I was so fortunate to be able to be a student of Esther Zimmerman, who you've had on your podcast as
yeah.
well.
Yep.
And I was just, going along my merry way, and I was repeatedly taking the Beyond Basic Obedience class with my dog, just because every week it was so different, and the instructor was just so creative and coming up with different things that we hadn't done before, and Esther came up to me at the end of one of my classes and she said, "You're going to be in my class next week." And so I said, "Okay." I didn't really think anything of it. I just figured, she was another instructor who taught the same type of stuff. So the next week I go into the other ring, and so she was like, "Okay, so this is competition obedience." And I stood up and I grabbed my stuff and I said, "I'm in the wrong class." And she goes, "No, you're not. Sit down." And she was like, give this a try. I think you're gonna like it." And boy, was she ever right. Um, it just it just clicked with me, and he was such a good boy. I had the world's easiest first dog. I couldn't have ordered one up on Amazon any better than he was. He was so patient and so willing to let me make 100,000 mistakes and still want to be there and say, "Okay, are you ready now to teach me the right way?" Um, but yeah, we had a great fun journey together. He was my first dog and my first UD, and because I got into it rather late. I mean, he was probably 8 or 9 years old when I got his UD.
That's pretty
He's,
impressive, though,
Yeah.
Danette. Your
you
very
know,
first dog to
yeah,
UD. That's
yeah.
pretty incredible.
And back then, rally wasn't a real big thing yet. Um, because we're talking like in 2002, is when I got him.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so it wasn't a really big popular thing yet. So I got started in obedience first and learned about rally. I moved out of Massachusetts. Well, I moved from Eastern Massachusetts to Western Massachusetts. and kind of had to start all over again and, find a training center. And because I wanted to continue what I was doing, I was totally hooked at that point. Um, and boy, was I fortunate again to fall into the tutelage of Tibby Chase. She was my next instructor,
Yeah.
and she introduced me to the sport of rally.
And just to
And
interrupt, Tibby Chase is an instructor of obedience, and I think she does rally too, and she's an AKC judge of rally and obedience for
correct.
everyone out there. Yep.
And she was also instrumental in basically building the sport of rally. Provided a lot of feedback. She was like one of the biggest fans of rally and pushing for it to get accepted by the AKC. And so she was an early steward of the whole process. And I took classes from her for obedience and rally, and she kept poking me, when are you going to become a judge? You would be a really great judge. You really should be a judge. And I was just like, "Pff, yeah, right. What do I know about the grander scheme of things?" And it wasn't until I started showing in rally that I really understood and got the notion that I wanted to become a judge.
So what
Um,
you started with obedience. What made you try rally? Just like, "Oh, I'll try it," or what kind of, or did Tibby make you do it?
um,
No.
no, it was actually um I had picked up my next dog, who was a rescue lab, and I was looking for a canine good citizen class for him, and I found one in the I think it was like the ASPCA or something in downtown Springfield. They have a shelter down there, and they taught classes, and Elise Gouge was the instructor. So I wanted to get him into a CGC class down there, and she also told me about rally. We did some playing around with rally. And it was just really, really fun to be able to talk to your dog, to be able to work with your dog. And I liked the variety of it because it's never the same. Even if you show to the same judge, the course is going to be different. The skills are going to be a different mixed bag every time you go out. And that really appealed to me. Um, and so I started learning rally in between getting obedience titles on my two Labradors. And when I first started showing my first dog, Skylar, in rally, RAE was as far as you could go. That was the
Mm.
highest you could get. You could do RAE 2, 3, 4, whatever, but by the time I got to RAE with him, he was like 10, 11. So I got my RAE and I was like, okay, we've reached the apex, and I ended up retiring him. But I kept going with my younger dog because he loved it, I loved it, and we just, enjoyed learning and, getting to know the sport. And for me personally, I am a complete nerd. When I learn things, I'm the one who will take the instruction manual and read it cover to cover. I took the rally rule book and I read it word. I read every word in the rule book.
Wow, wow.
And
Yeah,
you know,
wow.
you
Because
are a nerd.
because
I
I
am
can't I
such
have
a
not
nerd.
done that with I have not done that with the obedience rule book. I'm
There's so much good information in there that a lot of people don't get because they don't read, especially like a lot of people will read the appendix in the back that has the signs and the descriptions, right?
Mhm.
This is what it is, this is how you do it. But there's a lot of good information in the judging guidelines chapter, in the chapter 2, which
Yeah, right.
outlines minor deductions versus major deductions. I was questioned. I mean, I've been judging now for 13 years, something like that. And I was questioned by an exhibitor about a month ago when I judged at a trial. saying, "Since when is walking by a sign an NQ?" And I'm like, "Well, since the inception of the sport." And I literally told her, it's in chapter 2, it's on page 36. You
Mhm.
know,
Cute.
it's the second bullet from the bottom. Go read it.
Wow. And that's
This is how much of a rally nerd I am. Yeah, and I got really into it. And when I first started showing back then, and this is kind of the way AKC does it, whenever they introduce new programs, they
Mhm.
grandfather in the judges and the evaluators that, you've already come thus far, right?
Mhm.
So they came out with AKC Fit Dog. Well, CGC evaluators are now CGC evaluators, we're trick evaluators, we're start puppy evaluators, we're fit dog evaluators, and it's like they just keep that's the way they do it. If you were a judge before, you're still a judge. Congratulations, now you can do this. So what they did with all of the obedience judges is they said, "Congratulations, you're now a rally judge."
Oh.
And I don't know how much training there was to be had back then. I don't know. It wasn't really like the age of webinars and Zoom meetings and things like that. That was back when we had in-person judges seminars and things like that. So what we found, myself and the folks I trained with, what we found is we would go to trials and the judges weren't that familiar with the rule differences,
Right.
like the definition of heel position, or, when it says minimum requirements are not met. Well, the dog didn't lie all the way down on the down, so I'm going to NQ you. Things like that. And after showing for a while to all sorts of different judges, you figured out which ones were really on board with the rally program and which ones just, didn't
Wanna
put
be
the effort.
bothered
Right,
with.
they didn't wanna be bothered to learn it,
Yeah,
and that's
right.
fine, um, and that's fine, that's an individual choice, but, it's and I know the sport was originally intended as a stepping stone to obedience, and I think from my perspective, it has morphed into very much a sport of its own.
That's how I feel
Sure.
too. That's how
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
too. 100%. Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of overlapping skills, and getting the dog to do a front, for example. A front is a front is a front. But how it gets scored in rally versus scored in obedience is very different. Heel position is not the same. And when I teach my students, I always get somebody who goes, "Really? Wow, I
Mhm.
never knew that." Heel position is different in rally than it is in obedience. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't read that deep into the rule book to pick up on that.
Feel like I feel like not like I have massive rally experience at all, so I'm not even pretending I do, but a little I've done. I felt like obedience to rally was a relatively easy jump. Like there's a couple little skills I had to teach Zeal. A lot I had to teach myself, but because I had a dog that was fully trained on engagement and like, I didn't feel like it was a super hard transition. I feel like it's a harder transition from rally to obedience. Would you agree with that or not?
I do agree. Because I think a lot of times people become, or they either become dependent on it or they choose to be dependent on verbal support of the dog in the rally ring.
Mhm.
Mhm. Sit, come front, go around, spin, right, wait, stay, down, sit, come front, jump. There's a lot of verbal cues in rally that turns into a lot of chatter. And it's a lot of rapid fire commands for the dogs. And I think when you go from rally to obedience and, everybody's like, "Oh, now I can't say anything to my dog." it's a culture shock for them, but I think that's what just makes the sports different.
Mhm.
Because now I'm not going to say anything to you. So now, from my perspective, I with my current 5-year-old lab Enzo, I started in rally with him
Mhm.
because he was a lot of dog. And I needed to give him the experience of doing, a competitive sport with him, but without it meaning, like putting 2 tons of pressure on both of us, and it's like, if we don't cue, that's fine. We'll cue tomorrow. We'll cue the next time, whatever. And I did a lot of experimenting with him, doing hand signals only, not talking with him,
Mhm.
not using verbal cues or using verbal cues for just some things to see what is his understanding, what's his level of understanding. Do you know it only if I see it? And you know in I found in environments that were really overwhelming for him, he would be so Johnny on the spot responding to verbals that I was impressed. I was seriously impressed about how much multitasking he can do in his brain and still, come out of the ring with a really decent score. And he just impressed me. But it's funny because I do ask, I pull this question from a lot of obedience people, um competitor, like high level obedience competitors, and I'll say, have you ever done rally? And the response is almost always the same. They say, God, no, that's way too hard. Because they're thinking of it inside their context of, like you said, Petra, the level of engagement you require. They're thinking of it in that context, and they don't want to drop their criteria for performance. So they're saying at that level of engagement is just too hard.
Yeah,
Um,
so I mean, I feel like for me, if I have a young dog and it's going to be a competition obedience dog, right? Um, the reason I don't want to do rally with it is because it feels a little choppy, and like if I need to glance away, my dogs will read that as a disconnect because I teach engagement to such a high level.
right.
Having said that, with a dog that understands engagement, is fully trained like Zeal, and quite frankly, I had never done it. So who am I to say, right? It's like you're saying things about something you've never done. So I'm not gonna lie. In the past, I've had been like, ugh, rally, whatever. Until I did it, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of, first of all, Zeal thought it was the most fun thing on the planet Earth, and we got to do it together. And I'm like, I kind of like this. And I realized that really the biggest part with respect to engagement fell on me because I should not have to stare at the sign. If I get to the sign and I have to actually read it in that moment, then that's going to create a disconnect. And my dog's going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Right. So I was like, well, really, if I were to do this properly and be the best teammate for my dog, that's just me. Right. I should learn the signs so that I should pretty much have it memorized with respect to the course. I'm not saying that's easy, but that's what I should be able to do. Just like on an agility course, you don't stop and go, oh, wait, which way am I going? You better have it memorized, right? And what
Mhm.
handling am I going to do? I have to have that memorized. So I should get to understand the sign to the point where if I see it at a glance, my brain shouldn't have to go, okay, call front, finish left. No, it should go, okay, boom, 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 right?
Right.
So I should have to memorize the signs to that point. I should understand them to that point. I should memorize the course enough so that if I just kind of glance up to orient myself or as a quick reminder, but that's all it should be.
Right.
And, Zeal held me accountable. If I looked at a sign too long, he's like, dude, what are you doing? So, um, so I feel like with an adult dog, I could totally do it, and I don't if I did it that way, I don't think it would have a negative impact on my obedience, my competition obedience. And
Right.
if I were a more experienced rally person, like let's say I do a lot of rally with Zaina towards the end of her career, then I get a younger dog. Well, then no, then I would have a better feel for course flows and understand. And maybe I could take a younger dog in because maybe I could glance away and it wouldn't be a problem.
Yep. Lori, have you ever done rally?
Yeah, that's actually what I started Mary Elizabeth in, was rally. That's all I did
No, I
was
Okay.
didn't even know
rally.
that.
Yeah, I started with rally, and not until I actually watched Obedience up at the Big E and saw somebody get their utility title was when I switched gears and became obsessed with Obedience. But it was yeah, so, I did do rally, and I did feel like I think it's really also, and Danette, you have definitely more insight on this. Like, is it the level of like the intensity of people, what they want out of the sport? Like, are there people who just want to kind of just get through? It's like with obedience too. People who just kind of want to get through and get the title any which old way, or are you seeing tons of people who come in and they just really want that engagement piece? They really put in the work for the obedience, because you do need to have some serious obedience skills to do these rally courses, but along with it, you still need the engagement piece, right?
Right. And I see both ends of the spectrum when I judge. I see people who, they're just trying to get, their dog just to, let's just see if we can get through novice. And then
Mhm.
they usually do, and they're like, okay, that was fun. Now I want to see if I can get through intermediate. And they're not aiming for the stars. They're just doing something fun with their dog. And then I see
Mhm.
the people who are really competitive, who are vying for rock points and placements. Those folks are generally, very serious about it. And it's more about training the skills, because if you can do a skill quickly with precision, you're
Mhm.
usually gonna be in the placements.
Mhm.
And, like, speaking to what Petra mentioned before, I when I compete as an exhibitor, I will memorize the course.
Right.
I memorize the course because I can't be bothered reading the signs, and I want to give my dog, who is, again, he's drivey, he's demanding. I don't want to be sitting there figuring out how to do the sign. I need to just keep him moving at a good, decent pace without rushing, to get him through the course so that he is at the optimal level of engagement where he's not checking out and waiting for me and I'm
Well,
not.
yeah, and you don't wanna,
And
like, have, like you don't wanna be, like, motivatingly moving and then stall out,
right,
motivatingly moving and stall out. So when
right.
I competed, one of the biggest things that I just remember that I was, like, blown away by was I never even I stopped before I went into mass to get my master title. I think I stopped at what is excellent. And I just remember walking the courses, and I remember the instructor I was taking rally classes with, she was like, you've got 10 minutes and you better walk that course as many times as you can fit into that 10 minutes to memorize your course and memorize your signs, like, which really held true because the less, like, the more you knew it and the less you had to think about it, the better it was going to be. It was going to go for your dog. And I just being out there walking the course, and people would stop me and be like, how do you do this sign? And I'd be like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that, but I'm sure you see that a lot, right?
Yep. I
um
do. And
and so,
I
like, from like a judge's perspective, and you also teach, where do you like, what is the thing, like, I mean, what are some of the things, like, you wish that you were seeing more instruction on to prepare people for success?
Yeah, I think what I've seen and heard over the years is I think there's a tremendous number of people who train for rally by themselves. They don't go to
Okay.
classes. They
Okay.
look at the signs and the descriptions, and they learn it on their own. I mean, I think it's great. AKC now has this, library of video clips out on YouTube that show you exactly how it's done.
Right.
Each and every sign, every single sign. There's 300 something signs.
There's an app too, isn't
There's
there?
an
Like
Mhm.
app.
some
There's
apps.
several
Uh,
apps. Yep.
there's an app because that's what I was doing.
Yep.
Whipping
Yep.
out your phone.
Whipping out my app at the trial, like, oh shoot.
Yep. And I think part of the problem is a lot of people train for rally on their own. And they either don't have classes available to them, or it's too far to go, or they don't have time to, the one class they find is on a night where they have something else.
Mhm.
I mean, you and I have talked about this. I mean, I was looking for rally classes for my new puppy. I can't
Right.
find any.
Right.
Most of the
Mm.
classes are during the day. I still work full time.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah,
is
and
how I
that's
end up
true.
teaching.
Yeah, and that's true. Like Danette, I was fortunate enough that Danette agreed to teach rally for me, like for train me, and I couldn't believe the response. Like immediately they
I was gonna say,
signed up so fast.
with as big as Raleigh is, I mean, it's enormous. Like, I
Right.
would think there would be, I would have thought there would be a lot of rally classes because they'd be super popular.
Yeah,
Right.
they are super popular. Every time I've cycled in and out of teaching, because I've moved around, and I do still work full time, and it's a balance for me between um taking classes for my dogs, and we do multiple sports. We do, competition obedience, we do rally, we do agility, we do dock diving.
Oh my god.
My husband wants to borrow the dog to teach him human remains, and then I have to judge. And so and now I'm teaching again. So there's a big balance of my time that I have to, weigh, because my last go round with teaching, I ended up burning myself out,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that was not fun. And I don't want to do that, because I don't like to disappoint people and say, I can't teach anymore. I need to take a break. Um,
You
but
need to get rid of that job.
I do need to get to the job. The job gets in the way of my life. Um, but and I was looking for an evening class for rally in my area. I live in Connecticut, central Connecticut. I couldn't find one.
Yeah.
Couldn't find one on a night that I could make. So I'm back to teaching. Um, and this is how I taught Enzo rally, and this is how I'm going to teach Cash rally, is, by being my little demo dog for working through, the class mini courses that we do, and, doing some show and tell on how to teach the skills. And as soon as Lori asked me to teach for her program, and so I said, okay, sure. I've got a free night. I can do it. And I think the classes filled almost immediately.
They
Mhm.
did. They
Um,
did.
so there's demand out there, and I wish more people. I know a lot of people who know a lot about rally, and they're
Mhm.
really good, and they know all the nuances and the ins and outs, and they know all of the details about how the exercises should be performed, and I wish more people would teach it,
Mhm.
because I know there's a lot of good people out there. Um,
So
but
what would you suggest for people who, cuz it's the same in obedience too. Like there's just some people who live in areas and don't have access, or they work, 1, 2 jobs and they just can't get to a class, and so it is easy enough to get the signs and set up a course somewhere, like, but what would you suggest for these people, as or things that you feel that would benefit these people?
I mean, not to be, the rally nerd again, but
Read the damn rule book.
read the damn rule book.
Mhm.
True.
Read chapter 2. Chapter 2 is full of important information. Read the judge's guidelines. It tells AK that's where AKC tells the judges how to score. And read, the part in the back that everybody knows about is the signs and the descriptions, and know what is required. Bold, and it's in bold face, underlined. That's the important stuff. But read the words in between the important stuff too.
Do you
Um,
think people are struggling more in terms of, like, they don't understand the sign versus their dog is just not executing it properly, which would assume it's a training issue?
I think sometimes people don't know how to train the skills. So they kind of wing it, or they hope that the sign won't be on the course. Um, I see that a lot with,
That's
I mean,
hilarious.
we have now a handful of signs that involve backing up, right? Healing in reverse, if you will. Um, there's still a lot of times that I judge that people just can't back their dogs up,
Mhm.
and it's to me a fundamental skill now, because there's a lot of different signs, and there's 4 to 5 different signs in master level that involve backing up.
Backing up, right.
And it's not a new skill. That's been a sign in rally since 2012.
Mhm.
So, in some of these, like the side by side spins, and then you have some people will overanalyze everything and say, well, my dog spins faster than I do. I've seen people fall over. I've seen,
Spin out.
there's
Spin
Oh
out.
god.
there's no wording in there that says it has to be done, um in that it has to be synchronized or done at the same time. It says
Right, right,
the
right.
dog
Mhm.
the dog spins and the handler spins. It
Okay,
doesn't
yep.
say what happens first. It doesn't say what happens last. It doesn't say it has to happen at the exact same second in time. It doesn't say that it has to happen at the same rate.
Right,
So,
right.
I think people put too much pressure on themselves,
Okay. Do
to
you do you are there online resources for rally folks?
I
Like
would
obedience, there's a
Yeah.
ton.
There's a ton of Facebook groups. If you're on Facebook, there's a whole bunch of rally training Facebook groups
Okay. But
that
there's nobody offering online instruction,
I think there's
webinars.
some
there's some.
there's some on Fenzi. There's
Yeah.
Oh, there are.
Nicole.
Okay. Okay.
Nicole does some, but she doesn't only do that. She does rally and obedience.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I'm sitting here. This is how I forget it. I'm stopping myself. It's gonna go off the rails. I already had this like whole idea. I'm writing all these notes. I'm like, oh well, we could do tutorials
Yeah,
on
right. Well,
how to teach you pieces of signs.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
If
Danette
we
can
work
start
with
a
a
whole
rally
thing.
person, yeah, you could. Oh,
Yeah.
well, Danette, if you want to do it, let me know. I can help you out. I have all the.
Okay.
I've already started a whole rally business in my head just now. I already took notes on it, and then I'm like, what am I even doing? Like, I'm not already doing 8,000 things, but
Well, I'm just saying that that's what was making me think about it because I'm like, I'm thinking about people who don't have access. And yes,
yeah,
reading the signs, but there's something to be for said for having those
visual.
the
Right.
visual for
I
sure.
need the
Yep.
visual. That's why I needed the app. I had to see the human do it with the dog
Right.
because that's how my brain, like, I'd read it and go, oh, I still need to visually see it.
And you
Some
need to
people can
see it.
process.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when I teach my classes, and I have a mini course set up, and we talk about skills, we work on skills, and every time I'll say, "Do you want to see me run it first?" Everybody always like, "Yes, we want to see
Mhm.
what it's
Yeah.
supposed to look like."
Yep.
Mhm.
Especially, I have focus topics every week on what I teach in my rally classes. And when we talk about managing the space for your dog, that is a huge, huge problem in rally with, people think, you got to be right on top of the sign to do it, and then the dog ends up knocking the sign, or they're so close to the sign the dog can't even maneuver. Um
Right.
and when some judges have the signs really close together, how you can work around that.
Like, when I was doing rally, I remember this. I was like, "Holy hell!"
Oh,
Like, you literally walk in and you set up for start like 2 inches from the
yep,
gate.
yep,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's a
Or
hard skill.
it is a hard skill. And I worked this past class when I started my new teaching rotation. That was the first thing we talked about is setting up. Here you're gonna get another glimpse of me being a rally nerd, right? I actually went through the rally signs that we have like 300 something rally signs, and I'm looking to my piece of paper. I actually counted how many signs involve just doing a setup, a heel. Okay.
Yeah.
um there's a total of 69 different signs in rally that involve in some way, shape, or form a sit at heel.
Wow.
22 of them are in the novice class.
And tell me what your feeling is on, like, the majority. Do you see a lot of trouble with that skill?
I do,
Okay.
because part of the reason I became a rally judge, or part of the reason I wanted to become a rally judge, is because when I was showing in the early days, there wasn't it was a new and different sport, and there wasn't a lot of focus on course design. Or there was just like, okay, you have to have 4 excellent signs and 3 advanced signs, and you have to have 2 jumps. But they didn't say how, there was no advice or guidelines given as to how to make all that happen. And what you're left with is courses where the signs were really close together. It was very choppy. The dogs get demotivated. You can just see it. You can just see the dogs unraveling as the course goes on. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to design courses that give people and dogs room to move, because nobody wants to do the, stop, sit, get up,
Right.
sit,
Right.
take 2 more
Yeah.
steps, sit, down, sit, take 2 more steps, sit, pivot, sit,
Mhm.
and that gets old really quick with the dogs. And so that's why I design my courses the way I do, where I aim for the low end of the stationary exercises, and I try to space them out as much as possible.
'Cause you wanna keep the dogs moving
I want to
more.
keep them dogs moving and keep them engaged and keep them happy.
But the
And
problem is other people aren't going to, so the dog also has to somehow be trained to deal with when it's not
with
like
when
that.
they're choppy, right? Yep,
Yeah. So what
yep.
do you Yeah, and that's challenging.
It is. And so I would one of the number one skills that you have to have on your dog is to be able to, take 2 steps and sit. I mean, there's a novice sign that's, take 1 step, sit, take 2 steps, sit, take 3
Takes
steps,
3
sit. If you're going to practice one sign out of the whole 300, practice that one, because it's hard. And, you know, you can help your dog through it by telling them they're right. And that's one thing I always tell my students is, if you focus on telling your dog every single time that they are correct, I said, there's no room in your brain to be nervous, because you're going to be so busy paying attention to your dog and good boying, or yes, or wow, that was really great, on every single thing they do correctly. Because people think, oh, I've got to get
Mhm.
them to sit, then I got to get them to come front, then they got to go back to sit, and I got to do it fast because I want a placement or I want the points. And
There's
it's
some
it's not
Go ahead,
about
sorry.
that. It's about being able to get the dog to do it accurately the very first time you ask for it.
So I wonder, there has to be something, and I can't really speak on it because I haven't actually taken a rally class. I know about people that have taken them, but I don't know enough to really speak on it. I With my dogs, things like 1 step heels, 2 steps heel, 3 steps heel, my dogs would think, they all do, think that is the most fun thing on the planet. Like, I don't even have to reinforce it because they
Yeah.
start bouncing and acting like lunatics because 'cause they're like, "Oh my god, this is hilarious." So then it makes me say, "What is it that's not something they have to do on competition obedience, right? But all those things they do all the signs I've done, which I didn't get a rock, so I'm not even pretending. I'm just saying, come to front, go around this way, go around that way. They think it's hilarious. And so then I say, well, there has to be something different in my training, right? That's different than the majority of the rally training, that their dogs don't have those same feelings about those pieces.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you, which probably may help answer that is, uh, do you, like you said, Danette, you work on you focus on specific things like specific skills. Do you feel that most rally instructors are carving that out in their classes, or are they just throwing courses out and the hours just going round and round doing, you know what I mean? Like, are rally instructors teaching the value of sits and the value, putting that value on the dog so that those skills do become self-reinforcing and motivating to the dog?
Right, right. I don't think so. I think too many people focus on doing a course,
Getting through
right?
the core. Yeah,
Getting
right.
through a course. And I think it's kind of similar with like agility in in that sense, is that, they don't want to put the time in to be
Yep.
precise on every maneuver. They want to string it together and
Mhm.
say that they can get through it, because the sooner they do that, the sooner they can enter a trial.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, and especially the people who are training on their own and not working with an instructor, or even, training with a training buddy, and there's not a real instructor involved. I think they focus too much on putting courses together and, you know, doing in when people show, I think there's so much focus on doing the sign
Mhm.
and not paying enough attention to, the mindset of the dog. Are they distracted? Are they paying attention? Are they on board with you? Because I see it all the time where they come through the ring gate, the leash comes off, and they've lost the dog before they
Mhm.
Yeah.
even start. Then the dog can't set up at start. And then, the handler's getting all frustrated. And by the time they start moving on the course, the dog thinks, oh, I'm already in trouble, you
Mhm.
know? And instead of just being really super fluent on, can you get the dog through the ring gate, take the leash off, set up at the start, and still have a happy bouncy dog,
Right.
who can't wait for the word forward, and I
Right.
can tell those dogs that can't wait to hear that word, you know.
I think that's a big hole. I think that's the biggest hole that the AKC inadvertently created. And I'm not saying I have the answer for it. I haven't even really thought about it. But the fact that, so, right, because we talked about rally was supposed to be a stepping stone to obedience, but the step between the stones may as
Is
well be like,
Right,
country.
right.
yeah, it's gigantic. And it's primarily, I think, because of engagement, right? Because they rely so much on verbals and extra hand signals and the ability to do it just good enough to get
Yep,
through it,
yep.
and that and then that gives them enough reinforcement, like, oh, it works. So I really don't even think that the majority of people really truly understand the importance of engagement and how it would make their whole training and their performance 1,000 times just more fun and more rewarding for both of them if they had that piece. Because, like, I've never seen a class listed online, for example, on engagement for rally. I
Right.
Right.
see the signs, explain the signs, or what
Mhm.
are the judging, or this, that, and the other thing, but I don't see engagement skills for rally.
Right, right. Neither do I, and nor have I in the 13 years I've been
And,
doing
a
showing.
and thinking about rally, like, it is hard, it's very difficult because what are you in the ring for, like, anywhere from what, like, a minute and a half to 2.5
2 and a half to
average?
3 minutes, yeah,
Okay.
depending on the course.
It's rapid fire. Like
Mhm.
one sign can have up to how many like behaviors and
Right,
components to it.
right,
And it's
exactly.
just how many signs can you have all the way up through master? I mean, or like how many signs typically you think, Danette? Like
Usually 15 to 18
right.
signs on a
And within
course.
that one, those signs are multiple behaviors. It's not just like sit for the most part, I guess, past
Right.
novice.
Yep,
It's sit,
yep,
finish left. Like there's multiple components
right,
and they're one after another, after another, after another. And even though you're only in there for 2.5 minutes, that like if you don't have your dog's engagement, like that's hard, super
right,
hard.
and one of the things that I see a lot when I judge is not, with the green light of you can talk to your dog all you want in rally, in
Yep.
AKC rally, right?
Yep.
Um, so few people praise their dogs.
Mm.
And, like, let's just take the recall over the jump and master, okay? It involves a sit. It involves a wait. It involves a come to front. Well, it involves the jump, the come to front, the finish, and then there's a turn after the finish. And so the dogs have to do all of those components. And, not a single word of a good boy, good girl, good wait.
Mm.
That was nice,
Yeah,
none
cause
of that.
you can give that feedback to the dog.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and that's one of the things I definitely overtly try to do with my dogs is, "Sit, good boy, come front. Oh, that's nice. Get around. Okay, sit. Perfect. Let's go," And I try to work in those words of praise to keep that engagement up, to say,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I just
Mhm.
asked you to do 4 things in rapid fire succession and you nailed every one of them. So
Mhm.
good for you, good boy," and I think a lot of people don't take advantage of the green light on the talking to your dog. They're full of chit chat, but they're not full of instructions or praise.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like they'll say,
Yeah.
"Okay, let's go over here and let's do this other sign." No, the dogs don't understand any of that, you know.
Right.
Now Zeal loved that I was able to tell him he was good, like,
Yeah,
no.
they do, they wanna know that they're right
Yeah.
because it's like, "I asked you to sit, now I asked you to down." "Okay, well, was the sit wrong?
Mhm.
Because now you want me to down, you want me to sit again."
Really
Right,
good
and
And
then
now
point.
people
we're
That
are like
yeah.
people are
then
up
they're like,
against the clock and they're
"Yes,
like trying to like go super fast and the dogs are like, "Holy hell."
right." And now it's like, "Now I've asked you to sit again, so was the down wrong?" And now they're going,
Mm.
"Oh my god, now I don't even know if I'm right." And you see the dogs will just start to deflate once they get to, like, the middle of the course because now they've been their handlers are firing off all these commands at them, and they're not even sure if they're right.
Mm.
So that would be my one
Really
piece
good
of advice
point.
to
Yeah.
every handler is just tell your dog they're right, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And don't don't nitpick your dogs on being, a half a point crooked because half points aren't scoreable in rally. So just
Right.
take it, smile and go. Good job.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
go, you know?
Right. Right.
And I see a lot of people who will there's you a lot of the rock people forget they can do retries because you can't do retries in master or choice, but you can in excellent and advanced. And I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of points in excellent and advanced because they forget they can do retries.
Mm.
Oh, yep, 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 yep.
And then I've seen people do retries for things that would have maybe been a 1 point deduction. So you're trading a 1 point deduction for a 3 point deduction
Mm.
because you instinctively want to redo it for it to
Yeah,
be perfect.
right. Are there changes you would like to see made to the sport? Like even in terms of just
Hold
any
on.
of the
Can I just
classes? Oh
can we
yeah.
just backpedal? Just
Yeah, sorry.
hold
Yeah,
that
go.
thought.
Okay.
Well, because in line with what you were saying, where you were saying how they're like, praise your dog, instead of like just talking, 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 right? Like, and that just brought to mind because this happens with my students sometimes. Like they'll say, down, sit, stand, down, sit, and I'm like, ah, I
Yeah.
can't even process that quickly. Like, holy Hannah, you just made my head explode. Like, give the dog a second to process. And I think people don't understand that, like, on some level, dogs process the way we do. And if
Right.
you're just talking and talking, it's going to be like your spouse. You're just going to drown them out and not listen at all.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Cause it's like all you're going to hear is wah, 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 wah.
Right. You tune it
And
out.
it's annoying and it's distracting. So
Totally.
people think they're helping the dog and they're doing the opposite. And that's a big point, like, that I really take the time to explain to my students. I try to give them examples and I try to say, like, the more quiet you are, like, you tune everything else out and you lean in. Wait,
Yep.
what did she say? Right? And then if I use my words sparingly, then they're meaningful. Wait, she said something. That means something. So I don't talk much when I train, for sure, not when I show, and not when I train either, because I want it to be the same. Because I want my words to be meaningful and I want my dogs to be able to process the information. Um, so that they can actually hear it, understand it, and respond instead of being completely, like, overwhelmed.
Right. And people I used to tell people, my friends, all this all the time, fellow competitors and everything like that. I whisper to my dogs in the ring. I don't care if I'm in a noisy agricultural building made out of concrete and it's echoing six ways to Sunday. The dog at my knee can hear me. And it, like you said, it makes him pay closer attention. And and I'm checking to see, are you still paying attention to me? I shouldn't I see it all the time. People shout commands at their dogs. It's like he's right there. He can hear you,
Stop
you know?
yelling at your dog.
Stop yelling at your dog. Sit. You don't need to. They're right there. They can hear you. Um, and and I this is in the kind of the same vein as the episode you did on sportsmanship. Is when I'm judging in the ring, I hear everything. It doesn't matter how noisy the environment is.
So don't swear at your dog.
The spectators at ringside are just as loud and clear as the handler in the ring. So just, word to the wise. I hear everything. I can, even if you think you're not talking loudly, the sound carries and it bounces off concrete walls and echoes all over the place. And yeah, we can hear you. So
Good point to say that. The judges can hear
I can
you.
hear you. Yes, I can hear anybody being disrespectful to a steward when they're trying to check in,
Ugh,
you know,
hate
and
that.
and yeah, and so and I can hear, you don't have to shout your commands to the dog, or you certainly don't have to do it for my benefit because I can hear you.
All right, sorry, Lori, I cut you off.
No, that's
But I
okay.
didn't want to lose my.
Yeah, no. Well, I just wanted to touch upon like what Danette would maybe, I guess it goes to that too. Like what are there anything you would like the AKC to change about the sport, like even in regard to just signs or levels of classes or your national requirements? I know that we've talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would really like to see, and I think they kind of had this in mind when they came up with the choice class, but I think they missed the mark a bit. I would love to see a veterans class.
Oh, okay.
Um, I would love to see a veterans class similar to what WCRL does, because I compete in both AKC and WCRL. And have a true veterans class, right? So don't just take out the jumps. Take out um signs that involve multi changes of positions. Anything like the halt call fronts in advanced. So you can just say the veterans class, will omit the following signs and just take them out.
Yeah.
Anything that's hard for an old dog to do,
Mhm.
and then have a 3-leg title, have a 10-leg title. Give something for the old dogs to do that is more than just choice, because choice, they're still spinning, doing the side by side spins. They're backing up. They're doing multiple position changes. And that's all hard stuff for the old dogs to do. I would love to
Right.
see them come up with a true veterans class. And I
Mhm.
don't think it would take a lot of heavy lifting to come up with a decent program. But just figure out what signs that we currently have in the inventory, just take them out. Take them out of rotation. But lower the required number of stationary signs, maybe have none. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
The
Right.
whole for zeal, it's all those sits, like, so
yeah.
many sits
Yep.
Yeah.
because the old dogs lose their back end, right? So, like, his mind is strong, he wants to do everything, I still muck around with it in the yard, like, because he still wants to train when the others train, but the sits, like, it's just and he's got a few sits in him, but there are just too many on a
Right.
course, and
Yep.
he can't do them all.
Yeah. And and the multiple changes of position, or rising from a down is hard for old dogs, and
Right. Right.
but old dogs, they can still back up, they can still
Mhm,
go
Yeah, and heel
forward, and
long and
yes,
do
mhm.
the
yeah,
figure eight
there's a
and
lot that they can still do without having to do difficult position changes and multiple sits, in position changes. So I would love to see them come up with a decent veterans program, for AKC. And
How do
I
you come up with all the courses? I have to know. Because when I think about judging that, it gives me the same thought about agility. I'm like, I could never judge agility because you have to constantly create new courses. And if you're not a creative person like me, holy Hannah, because you have to always have new courses.
yeah, I can tell you, I don't always make new courses. I have what I'll call a footprint. And I will mix up the signs that I put in those places. Because if I have something where, let's say it calls for a left turn, well, that could be a double left about followed by a left turn. It could be a stand left turn. It could be a sit left turn. It could be a left pivot. There's a number of signs I can put in that spot.
Mm.
So what I do is I shuffle the signs on that same footprint, and it ends up being a very different course. So I have probably 20, or maybe a little over 20 now, different footprints, and I mix them up based on, okay, I've used this one this year, so I'll put that at the bottom of the pile. And then I try to, if I'm judging a multiple trial day or a multiple trial weekend, I try to not use a lot of the same signs, because there's such a variety of signs to choose from. I try to make sure that it's different signs or different skills from one course to another. You're always going to see like a left turn and a right turn in the start and a finish, but I do try to mix up the signs so that you don't always see the same stuff. But
No, that's a
I
lot of extra work from a judge,
mhm.
right? So we're already asking the
Yep.
judge to do all the requirements to become a judge, to volunteer their time, spend the whole weekend. And then
yeah.
on top of everything, they have to come up with courses.
There is
And
a
then I'm
ton
sure people complain about courses all the
There
time.
is a ton of prep work that goes into judging rally. There's just a mountain of prep work. Showing in judging a show, to me, is the easy part. That's easy peasy compared to the prep work involved.
Wow.
Because if you're a brand new judge starting out, you need to build courses. You need to design courses. So you have to start building your inventory of courses. Then I use software products to manipulate my course. I have master printouts. I have two full sets of signs that I own, that are mine. I pull all my signs ahead of time. So I will pull them by class level. So like I'll pull all my choice signs, and then I will pull the master signs that are different from so I'll just have the jump. And then
Yeah.
the excellent signs, I will pull the ones that change. from master to excellent. And so I have 5 sets of signs that
Mm.
I will bring to a trial. And so that when I get to a trial in the morning and I show up and I take my coat off, I can just throw signs down on the floor where they need to go and I'm ready to go. Um, a lot of judges don't do that. I think it's more common now because I went through a period. It was around when they came out with new signs and they did a revamp to the program in 2017. And all of a sudden, clubs didn't have proper equipment um, they didn't have enough cones. They didn't have the right kind of cones. They didn't have all the signs. So I ended up at that point just saying, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to bring everything. And whatever they don't have, I will provide. So
Which
when
is
I go to judge,
incredibly
unless I
nice of
have to
you.
fly, if I have to fly, it's harder. But
Mm.
if I'm driving to a trial, I bring my signs, I bring my holders, the numbers, the cones, everything except the jumps.
I could see you like walking onto the airplane with cones in your back, giant cones
Yep.
sticking out your back.
Yep, gigantic cones. But no, when I fly, it's very difficult. I don't bring anything and I have to trust the club.
That they have
And
it all.
and I will have many, many email exchanges leading up to that saying, "Okay, just so you know." Because one of the things about the signs is it's laminated cardstock, and when you pile up 300 signs, it's heavy.
Mhm.
I can't
Yeah.
I can't just,
Yeah.
throw 2 full sets of signs and stuff in my luggage suitcase.
The
It'll be overweight.
carry-on.
Yeah, in my carry-on. Yeah, I'll be dragging it down the
Do you
gangway.
hear that, exhibitors? Everybody listen to how much work these judges put in
Yeah.
so that
That's
you
right.
guys can show your dogs.
It
So
takes me
don't
probably
if you feel like complaining, go and become a judge yourself
yeah,
and do it.
it takes me probably 4 to 6 hours to prep courses for
Wow.
judging assignment, and that includes printing out the masters, going to Staples, printing out all the exhibitor maps. That,
Mm.
when you
Wow.
check in, you get a map that's provided by me. I go to Staples and I stand and I swear at the copying machine that all of a sudden jams or runs out of
Of
paper or it
course.
starts stapling them for some reason. And so I do that and I pull all the signs ahead of time and I load my bag. My bag gets very heavy. And so
Do you have to provide signs, or is that just something that you
that's
feel
something that I do to expedite when I show up for a trial that I don't have to get there 2.5 hours early so that they can A, locate their box of signs and B, they're not in order. So we have to sift through and pull them out one at a time. It
well,
can,
what about maps? Do you have to provide the maps to the competitors, or is that something that judges do out of kindness? I mean, I know they have to
yep,
post them.
yep. The only requirement by the AKC is that we post a copy.
Okay, but
Most,
you go to Staples and make
yep,
copies for your exhibitors?
yes, I do. And I
Wow.
make
Wow.
my score sheets because I score on a copy of the map. I am a very visual person.
Mhm.
And I score on a copy of the map. So I write in colored pen, write exactly on the map where a deduction happened.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you can look at it and see, oh, you lagged between this sign and this sign. Your dog lagged.
Mhm.
Or this sign you did incorrectly because you finished the dog the wrong way. And so people, when they want to see where they lost their points, they can look at their score sheet. It usually involves no questions for me at all. They can look
Okay.
at it and go, oh,
Oh.
yeah, I did do that, didn't I?
Mhm.
And it's very easy to see. I don't this is I've judged the Rally National Championship twice, 2018 and 2023. And they give you this grid and you have to bounce up and down with like, okay, so here's all the 1 point infractions, here's all the 3 point infractions and 5 point infractions. And then you have the grid going the other way of these are the stations. So if something happens in between a station, I have to write it down at the bottom There's a miscellaneous area down there.
Oh.
So I'm like always looking at the score sheet, finding where I need to write it and writing it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I strongly dislike doing that. I can have a copy of the map on my clipboard and I almost don't need to look at it.
Right,
My
which
hand can follow the path of the course on the
right.
clipboard and then I just write with
Yeah,
sometimes
that's
without even
clever. That
looking at
makes
it.
more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that that's one thing about the RNC I don't like. I just I went I judged it twice and I went as a competitor once.
Mhm.
There's just too many dogs in the building. There's
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
too many dogs, too
crazy.
many handlers. It's what, over 800 dogs
That's insanity.
Yeah,
in
it
that
was I think
space.
it was almost 800 dogs this past
Yeah,
year.
it's insanity.
And it's very, very easy to qualify for. You need 3 scores of 93 or better.
Mhm.
Even at like the novice level, it's really, really easy to qualify for. And I think they allow way too many entries.
Mhm.
I will not this and this is just my personal choice.
Mhm.
I will not put my dog through that again.
Well,
Because of
in
the
fact,
amount of dogs.
It's so
It's
crowded.
chaotic. It's
I
so
so
had a hard
chaotic.
hard.
time
Yeah.
I had a hard time getting to the ring. I had a hard time getting out of the ring.
Mhm.
And just moving throughout the building with I mean, he was a 2-year-old intact male at the time, and it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And
Toward
I
the
think
end of the day, it wasn't so bad.
well, I think it's so hard too because a lot of people that do rally which is in a way similar to obedience, except rally has, you know, a bazillion more people at nationals than obedience does. But it's a similar scenario in terms of prep, right? Like we have 1 to 2 ring trials. If we have a 3 ring trial these days, it's really big. A lot of places in a lot of parts of the country, they don't even have that many. So, how do you prepare your dog for that amount of distraction, for that amount of noise and chaos, not just for all the multiple rings, and so all the weird things the dogs are going to see and hear in the ring. Yeah, just the whole thing. And I think that what happens a lot, from my understanding, people I've talked to, students I've had, is like they kind of just train like they always train, and then they go there and they're like, oh God, it was a disaster. Well, oh my God, you have to train specifically for that environment.
Which is really hard to replicate.
Really
You know,
hard.
you've got
Yeah.
in 2 of the rings, you've got these big TV cameras on a
Mm-hmm.
platform
Yeah.
looming over the corner of the ring,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you've got, all sorts of people. There's just wall to wall people
Mhm.
around every single ring. And there's just, picking your way through the crowd is difficult, especially for
Annoying.
dogs
It's
that,
annoying.
yeah, and there's a lot of pressure getting through the crowds. And
Well,
Mhm.
I always go back and think about, like, going to a fair with all the
yes,
strollers,
Oh
and I'm
yes,
like,
god,
I get so
yeah.
freaking annoyed, you know what I
yes.
mean? I'm
It's
like,
like
"Shoot
trying
me
to take
now, get me out of here."
yeah, it's like trying to take your dog to the state fair,
Yeah.
and only it's
Yeah.
indoors. It was just not my cup of tea, as far as a competition goes, and, in a high level competition. I would be much more willing to entertain the thought of going to the knock than to return to the RNC for that and
I'm
just for that reason.
surprised. I'm so surprised. I didn't know what the qualifications were, and I'm really surprised. I mean, it's not like I don't, I want to say, well, everybody doesn't deserve to be there kind of thing. But I mean, nationals are nationals, right? Like
Right.
for us to qualify for obedience, like it's pretty stringent. And there are a
Yes,
fair number of people that can get decent scores or that even have arches and they don't qualify because it's hard, in my opinion, it should be
it
because
should
it's a
be.
special event, right?
Right,
It's something special. And so you need everyone knows that you have to qualify to even get invited, right? And it's an
right.
honor for a lot of people, even if they can't go to get invited is an honor. Why? Because it's not easy to get invited, right? Like,
Right, right. There's no
um,
such thing as a rally not regional qualifier.
yeah,
Right, and I think
yeah,
it's just way too easy to qualify for that event that's at on a national scale, and I think, I think the requirements should be more in line with what the knock is, either you have a rock
mhm,
or you can, have such and such criteria that
Right.
shows that you're on your way to a rock.
Yep.
mhm.
I it just doesn't I think it creates that super overcrowding atmosphere, which I think takes away from the ability of some really good dogs to perform to the level that they're capable of.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
I agree. I agree. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But huge kudos to the dogs that can. I mean, you're always gonna have some dogs that can handle the environment better than others, but still, I do think it's important for people to kind of process that, like, you really, if you are going to go, you really need to do some extra preparation, right? Like what we do when we are going to the NOC, we do very specific training for that because of the unique challenges that the dogs are going to face in that environment that they don't face at trials. And
Right.
I think you'd have to do the same thing, like in my head already, like, my brain like rapid fires, like, well, if my dog qualified, oh gosh, I would have to teach them this and this and this and this and this and this all to give to better, obviously, you can never mimic the exact environment, but, all the different pieces you'd have to introduce the dog to so that at least they have some preparation
Right.
for that
For that
unique
type of an
environment.
atmosphere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
You talked about what, some of the changes that I would like to see made. One of them, they just did make, and that's they changed what's required to become a judge. Um,
Yeah, 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 that's right.
and that was huge, and I think a lot of people, had made that type of a suggestion to the AKC over the years, and they are finally changing it as of January 1st, 2026, and that is you can become a rally judge if you have a rock on your dog. Um, there's so many people, so many really good rally handlers who would make phenomenal judges, but they don't do obedience. They
Mhm.
devote their lives to doing the sport of rally.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that AKC is now recognizing that pool of people. Because
Oh,
up until now,
I didn't
it's
even know. So you had to be
yeah.
an obedience judge to be a rally judge?
No, you had to have obedience titles on a dog. You had to have a
Oh, I
CDX.
didn't
Well,
know.
the current requirements for the rest of 2025 is you have to have a CDX on a dog and have handled a dog up to an RE and have so many, I think what, 5 legs of an RM rally
I
master
didn't
title on a
know
dog.
that.
So
Oh,
they're
I didn't.
changing that to say you can have either a rock championship on your dog or a Rally Master title and a CDX.
Nice. Yeah,
So,
I
but for a
agree with
lot of
yeah,
people,
that's good.
they don't want to do obedience.
Mhm.
They devote their lives to doing rally and they do it really, really well. And there's
Right.
Mhm.
so many people I know personally who would make phenomenal rally judges, but they would never fit the criteria. Um,
Right.
so
Good, that's good. That's a
That is
really good
good.
change,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm really glad to see that change coming. So
That's
I
really good.
I think that'll open the door for a bunch of folks, and I'm going to be right there prodding them along, like Tibby was prodding me, saying, "So,
Aw.
when you gonna become a rally judge?" You know?
Aw, that's great. That's
So, what do
great.
you love about judging, and what do you find the most challenging about judging?
I think by far the most challenging is double trial days, where you have a separate trial in the morning and a separate trial in the afternoon. It's a lot of prep work, so you have double the prep work,
Yeah.
and you have like, I put the effort in to make sure I don't have a lot of the same signs with the same skills. I don't always, hit a home run on that, but I try. And it makes for a very long day because in order to get 2 full trials done in one day, you have to limit the entries. So you're constantly awarding ribbons, changing the course, judging, awarding ribbons, changing the course. Um,
Yeah.
and then you usually end up with a very early start and a very short lunch break because in between you clear the ring, put all the sign holders back in order, and then you lay down your next course. I usually like to lay out the next course before I break for lunch. Um, but then you have, the whole next trial to get through. It usually ends up being a very long day, and it's
Yeah.
very mentally
I was gonna say,
taxing
like,
to
I'd be
pay
drooling.
right, to pay very
Same.
close attention to all the rapid fire things that you're doing is hard, and I learned the hard way. Um, when I judge, I am so focused on watching the teams, I don't blink as often as I should, and my
Nice.
eyes get dried out because I'm not blinking,
Oh my
and I
Wow.
will
god.
go, like, the entire day, blinking very seldom, and my eyes get dried out, so I have to put in eye drops and things like that. So it's hard on your feet, as judges get older and you're judging on concrete or gravel all day long, or if you're outdoors in the sun or in the rain or undulating grass where you got little holes here and there. It takes a toll on your feet, your ankles, your knees, your back. And it
I always get exhausted just thinking about judging. After hearing everything that you have to do, I'm like, "Oh my god."
it doesn't make you want to run out and become a rally judge, really?
No. Like, no, it makes me look at all of you even more like superheroes because, like I've said
Yeah.
it before, I cannot even watch a freaking full run of obedience without
True.
losing my train of thought. So just the whole, and all the preparation you do and the planning like that, I would be the same way. And
Right.
so I would be, all those extra, I never even crossed my mind that you guys are doing all this extra work before you even get there. And then, like you said, oh, I bring my own signs because if they don't have the signs, the extra time. And I'm like, oh my god, there's so much more to this than I even, like, knew. And I already thought it was an the hard like, one of the hardest jobs possible is being a judge, like,
Yeah.
'cause of that constant concentration and being on your feet and, people aren't always the kindest, and, like, it's so hard, it's so hard.
Yeah, and like I said, I had an exhibitor approach me and actually went to the rep saying, since when is it an NQ to walk by a sign? And I'm like, it's in the rule book. I've been doing this long enough that, I know I'm right. And, and it's in chapter 2, page 36. Look it up. Um and it's just, I had to take time away from the ring, I had to step out of the ring, I had to have a chat with the rep, and, it just takes extra time, in an
Yeah.
already long day, it
Yep.
just takes extra time,
Yep.
And the
and,
Right.
person
you know
should have just looked it up themselves.
Exactly.
right,
Exactly.
right. Or ask a friend, or
Right.
ask somebody
Phone
else that
phone a
is
friend.
knowledgeable about doing it, and, you know, but
Yeah, it's challenging.
It
It's
is.
very challenging. Um, well, hopefully part of why we do this is so that people can hear all this and just have a deeper appreciation for what judges do for everybody. Like it's beyond clear. You would never do all that prep work if you didn't really care
Right.
about doing like a beyond awesome job. Like you're not just showing up, putting in the time and jetting out of there, like, you're putting so much thought and so much effort into giving everybody the best possible experience, and you're coming at it from, also having the benefit of being an exhibitor and competing. Then and people really need to understand that because, like I said, I didn't know, and I think that should give everybody in general, everybody should be grateful to judges anyway. Preach that constantly all the time. Stop complaining. If you can do it better, go get your judge's license and prove to everybody how much better you are. But those people don't. They're the ones they just stand there and complain. And it makes me crazy. Everybody should be grateful. Everybody should be thankful. Everybody should be appreciative no matter what. And that should be, everybody should set an example and act like that. And if everybody does, it'll start to bleed into the positive direction instead of the negative direction. Because without the judges, we have no trials. We tend not to have enough judges anyway. And then to hear the sheer amount of time and effort you guys are putting into this of your own time, you are not getting paid for this. Like,
Right.
hence the fact that you still have a full-time job. Or else you could just quit, right? Yeah, people really need to appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it does. It makes my day at the end of a trial to have somebody say, I really enjoyed your courses today. That makes it worth the while for me, because that's something that maybe I bring that the next judge, didn't bring.
Right,
Is
right.
that they enjoyed my course design, and I try not to make them too easy. I find that mostly the rock competitors, they want a challenge.
Mhm,
They don't want another boring course that they can do in their sleep.
mhm.
They rise to the challenges. And, so I try not to make it, stupid hard, but I try to make it at least interesting. Um and so it does make my day at the end of the day when somebody says, "I really enjoyed your courses today."
And it just
That
takes a minute to do that, guys.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, super interesting.
Really good.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Anything you wanna share, ask, preach?
This is the time we shout out our preaches.
Yeah, praise your dog in the ring. Tell them they're doing it right. When you rapid fire commands at them, just like sit, yes, down. Oh, that's awesome. Sit, yes, yes, perfect, go. And just it's not a lot of effort. And if you focus on trying to pay attention to praise, even half of what the dog does right, it takes processing power out of your brain to be nervous or to be worried about, gee, will I
Mhm.
get my 10 master points? Um, it just, if you focus on the components and the skills, the points will come. The points will be
And
there.
it's supposed to be fun. You're supposed
It's
to be
supposed
Yeah.
having
to be fun.
fun.
Yes.
Think
Yeah.
about your teamwork with your buddy.
Right. Right. Because if your dog has a miserable time in the ring, they're not going to want to play your game for very long.
Yeah.
Um, make it interesting, make it fun for the dogs. I would rather see a dog having fun and maybe they goof up and they mess up a sign in master or whatever, and you don't get any master points. But you know what? Your dog had a great time. They're gonna want to do it again. Um,
Praising
that's what
them
it's
is gonna
about.
boost their ego and build their confidence, and the more you do that, that's gonna build over time, and then your dog's gonna start going in the ring and going, "I'm really good at this. I know what
Yes.
to do, like, I'm always doing it right," and they're gonna love it. I mean, you would feel the same way if someone praised you and was like, "Good, that's it, good job," versus someone that's always nitpicking you and saying, "Nope, not good enough. Nope." It's the same.
Right.
Right. Or if somebody's telling you, like to do 15 different things, sit, down, stand, come, front,
God.
finish, left, right, get around, spin, down, wait, stay, front, and you're like, did I do any of that right?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
any of that good?
They have
Yeah.
no idea
You have
because
no
you're not
idea.
saying and in obedience, the dogs worry about that because we can't do it, and here you have a great opportunity and you're right, like, I think that's part of why Zeal liked it too. It's like we're doing little pieces and I'm like, super buddy. Oh, good. That's it. I'm
Yep.
constantly telling him what a good job he's doing. And he's like, oh, this is like the best.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. So important.
Awesome. Well, this was so, so good. As if now I feel horrible asking you to do this after you told us how much time you already have to dedicate just to your judging and your teaching and everything else. So we really extra, extra, extra thank you.
We really do. We
Yeah, this
really
was
do. Thank
fun.
you.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this. This was fun.
Yeah, you shared a lot of really good information. Really, it was really beneficial.
Yeah,
Really
now
good.
you got my brain churning on online teaching resources.
Oh, yeah,
Like you
talk
said,
to
Well,
me.
something that would
DM me.
actually be teaching and instructional in nature as
DM me. I have ideas, baby. I have ideas.
yeah, Danette, because
I
you
took
could
notes.
totally,
I already
you
took
could
notes.
market that shit quick. Hurry up.
I
you
got
know.
you, girl. I have it all written down already. And I'm
See?
Yeah, I have, my I because I just started back up teaching, and it's like I dug out my old teaching plan, and the I teach signs in groups. So it's kind of like, teaching obedience skills that apply across the levels. I teach it the same way, so we work on, anything that involves a call front. We do at the same time. Doesn't matter if it's a master level sign, if it's a
Right,
novice sign.
Mhm.
Call front is a call front is a call front,
Right.
right.
and so we
Thi-
work on them all together, and it takes some of the spookiness away from, okay, I earned my title today. Do I want to move up?
right.
You know, and it takes that, big scary feeling away of moving up to the next level, and oh my god, the signs are all different. Well, they may be different, but the components are all the same.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think something where people can access something online like that is just another way of, yeah, it's just a different way of support for them that they can access, that people who can't get to a class or the signs just aren't cutting it, reading the sign or watching a short clip. Like they really do need maybe an opportunity to get some feedback, online feedback, however, which way you could do it. Like that's just I think that would be a really good idea for,
And to teach the signs in tiny little pieces because I
yeah,
think
break things
everybody
Right.
teaches the
down.
whole sign in one thing. So when I was doing it with Zeal, I was like, oh, I already know why people are going awry because of the way like I had to break things into smaller pieces so he could be successful. Yeah, so even then back then my brain was already like going, had all these ideas. I just, I have so much free time, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Get to it.
All right. Great
All
job,
right.
everybody. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you
Thanks,
so
thank
much,
you.
everybody.
Danette.
My
Really good.
pleasure. My pleasure.
All right.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.